Bantamweight bout. Ho Kang coming in at plus 115 against John Castaneda, sitting at minus 145. Over under 2.5 rounds. Minus 245 for the over, plus 205 for the under. 36 years of age for Ho Kang. 31 years of age for John Castaneda. Kang coming off the big win against Christian Quinones. Round one sub. And it was a thing of beauty. Cracked him on the feet, got him down to the ground, and put him away. Castaneda, a win over Muin Gafrov by decision, and a good bounce back win for him after the loss to Daniel Santos. Who you got in this one?
Yeah, I gotta lean dog or pass in this one with Ho Kang. I gotta take him. I thought he looked really good in his last fight against Christian Quinones. Obviously, Quinones maybe too much too soon for him at that point in his UFC career. For Kang, though, I think this fight you're going to see maybe his experience kind of take him far against John Castaneda. I think John Castaneda is a good fighter, but I think he's still younger to the point where he's going to make some mistakes. Not younger, but he's experience level in the UFC. Like we see him in some of these fights, like against Daniel Santos. Like he'll make some mistakes, and he'll kind of drain that initial gas tank at times. And a guy like Kang is going to know how to take this thing into the deep waters. If Castaneda wants to use his wrestling here, I think Kang's going to be live for a submission, and he'll be able to hang in that department. If Castaneda wins this fight, I think it's because this fight stays on the feet for 3 minutes, and Castaneda just does better with the boxing and fighting at range here against Kang. Like Kang's not a bad striker. He's not a powerful striker by any means, and he doesn't have the most volume, whereas Castaneda does have a little snap on his shots. And he also throws a higher percentage and a higher volume as far as the output goes. But Castaneda likes to get into these striking matches early. As the fights go on, he will shoot some takedowns, maybe when he gets a little bit tired. And when you do that against Kang, a guy who has good cardio, a guy who goes to decision a lot, has a lot of experience in those later rounds, I think that's when he's going to start taking over. And that's when he's going to start looking better in this fight. Not even taking over, just making this a close dogfight, in my opinion. I don't think either guy here is going to run away with it. But it all comes down to that UFC experience for me, man. In a close fight like this, I think I got to lean with the guy who's a decent underdog in Kang. And, even Kang in some of these grappling and wrestling exchanges, if Castaneda does start making some of those mistakes, Kang's going to be extremely live for a submission. He's got a lot on his record. He showed it against Quinones. So if he can do that, or if he can even get a takedown of his own in this fight and work from top position, I think he's extremely live to put himself or set himself up for some kind of submission or to steal a few rounds here at the least. So yeah, I got to take the guy with dog money next to his name in a fight where I think it comes down to who's going to make the less amount of mistakes. And I think that's Kang here.
Yeah, I think this is a close fight too. It's a good matchup. The thing about Ho Kang, he's been in the UFC for 10 years, which is crazy, and he's still doing it. 36. Obviously, he had the time off because of the military service for South Korea, but coming in here, I just based off the wins in the UFC, nothing jumps off the board to me. It was a good performance against Christian Quinones, but that was only his second UFC fight. Before that, wins over Danabagari, no longer with the UFC. Just a lot. All of his wins really are like guys that aren't even in the UFC anymore. And then the loss to Ronnie Yaya back in 2021 doesn't look great to me. Castaneda been a little bit more active. The win over Gaffarov was underwhelming. The loss to Daniel Santos, it was a hell of a fight. And he had Santos hurt early in that fight and then ends up kind of gassing out, or at least the pressure got to him a little bit, and he gets finished there. And then the win over Miles Johns looks pretty good. But for Castaneda, I would encourage him to go to the ground in this one. Obviously, got to be safe against the submission attempts. But I think he could do work on the feet and mix in the wrestling and do good work there. So I think Castaneda should be able to get the win here. I'm not like a huge believer in Ho Kang, not a huge believer in John Castaneda either, but I just think Castaneda's got a little bit more of a well-rounded game coming in here. And the thing about Kang is like the volume at times is just super underwhelming. Like he gets outstruck by Bakary, gets outstruck by Pyung Hon Lu. Like he's losing these fights, getting outstruck. It's just not a good look when judges are basing it off of damage nowadays. And Castaneda does have some pop in his hands, so I'm gonna go with Castaneda. Don't really love either side in this one, but he'll be the pick for me.